Welcome to part one of this Q&A session. These are questions from you guys, and they are fan questions about racing. Racing, something I know nothing about, but I will attempt to answer. Who were your favorite drivers growing up? You know what? I've said this before. I grew up in the best time to grow up in this sport, where you had Pearson and my dad and Bobby and Donnie and Leroy Yarborough and Cale Yarborough and Buddy Baker. And then along in the mid-70s, Darrell came along, those guys. But Charlie Glotzbach, man, I was a huge Charlie Glotzbach fan when he drove that purple car, the Dow Chemical car. Man, that was my favorite. But I grew up a Richie Petty fan, so those, just being around all those guys as a kid, they were all my favorite drivers, to be honest with you. It was a special time to be in the sport. What was your favorite piece of merchandise from your racing career? You know, they made some Kyle Petty shampoo. Oh, a little laughter from the crowd here that's listening. That was pretty special. I don't know, because here's what I found. In all the years that we had souvenirs, the souvenirs that I really liked, the fans didn't buy. And the souvenirs the fans bought, I really didn't like. So that's tough. I think the die-cast cars are my coolest thing. And I say that because I grew up in a time when you didn't have toy cars. So to have toy race cars, and to be able to play with and grow up with toy race cars, was a big deal. So for me, I think that's the coolest thing is the die-cast. What was my favorite track to race at? You know, I get that one a lot, because Rockingham was a good racetrack for me. But I love the road courses. I loved Watkins Glen. I love Sonoma, Riverside. The first time I went to Riverside, man, I fell in love with that place. So I think for me, the road courses were the most fun to drive. I enjoyed the short tracks. I enjoyed Wilkesboro, man. Golly, I love Wilkesboro. But I think looking back, that was probably the most fun for me, or always the road courses. Do you have a favorite racing moment? You know what? No. Well, my favorite racing moment, and we talk about this a lot, anytime I do an interview or something, is my two favorite races are my dad winning Daytona in '79, because I felt like that was the first car I ever got an opportunity to work on and be a part of building that car that won. I was on his pit crew for a lot of years, but being a part of building that car, that was something, because you knew you had put your heart and soul into that. And then when Adam won the ARCA race at Charlotte, crashed in practice, we put that thing back together, Bobby Kennedy and some of the guys at PE2. So those two moments are my favorite moments. As a young man, you had several career options. Really, I had none, but if you want to say that, to choose from, looking back, do you wish you had done anything different? No, I don't wish I had done anything different. And I've said this before, you know, I don't look back, ever. We had this thing where you run a race on a Sunday afternoon, and if you wrecked, or if somebody made you mad, or your feelings got hurt, you could whine about it and moan about it until midnight, but you know, at 12:01 it was Monday, and Sunday was behind you. And you couldn't look back to that Sunday. You had to look ahead to you had to learn, but you couldn't look back. And the point was keep moving. And I chose the path I chose because that's what I wanted to do from the time I was 4 or 5 years old, was drive a race car. Did I want to try other stuff? Yes. And I've tried other stuff, and I've done other stuff. And it was enjoyable. But at the same time, I did what I wanted to do. And if I had done something different, I may not be the person I am, or who I am, or have enjoyed the things that I've enjoyed in life. So I don't look backwards. What's your favorite memory from your time during the Wood Brothers? You know what? Here's what I say. I love those guys. Loved Glenn and Bernice, Leonard, Kim, Eddie, Lynn, Nancy, Carol, everybody. And their kids were little when I drove up there. But this is what was so cool. I went from driving for my dad and my granddad and my uncle there at Petty Enterprises to driving for the Wood Brothers. And I would go up there and hang out with them. And at lunchtime, they would go over to Bernice's, over to Glenn's house, and she would cook lunch. She and Kim would cook lunch for him every day. And we would eat fried Spam sandwiches on white bread with mustard. And I love fried Spam sandwiches on white bread with mustard. When I went to see him not long ago, I had another fried Spam sandwich. Bernice said, we're going to feed you something better. I said, that's what I want. But it was just going from one family to another family. And they accepted me and treated me like I was part of their family. So I think the lunches, even though we won a couple of races and we had some good times, I think just hanging out with their family was my most special memory. Who's my all-time favorite driver? I would have to say Rich Pay. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you thought I was gonna say somebody else. And I say that because I think all little boys grow up wanting to be like their dad. And all little boys want, I used to say it all the time. When I was in the backyard shooting basketball, I wanted to shoot the ball farther than he could. I wanted to hit the ball farther than he could. So you grow up trying to emulate your dad, riding motorcycles, driving race cars, whatever it is. So I think for me, because he's my dad, he's my most favorite race car driver and always will be. So those are some pretty dang good questions. So tune in again. We're going to do more question and answers. This is just part one of this section on racing. But thank you for your questions and thank you for your thoughtfulness.